After divorcing my wife, I couldn't wait any longer to cut off every tie with her. I married my young and beautiful girlfriend, bought the SUV I had wanted for years. I felt like I was alive again. But then, things began to change. I am Chris Harrington. On the day I received the divorce papers, I deliberately wore the suit Fiona, my girlfriend, had bought for me, a deep blue suit, perfectly tailored, like a declaration of my new life. Fiona insisted on coming along, but I refused. I couldn't predict Hannah Snow's temperament. Hannah, my wife, or more precisely, my ex-wife, was always an enigma. I had never truly understood her. She lived closed off. Her emotions seemed locked in a box no one could open. Don't stare at her too long. I'll get jealous, Fiona teased, tugging lightly on my tie, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Her shy smile felt like a warm breeze, making me even more certain that divorcing Hannah was the best decision of my life. Hannah, in contrast, was always somber. Even in the most private moments, she made me feel as though I was facing a cold wall. Fiona was different, youthful, radiant, and she seemed born to understand me. All right, I promise, I said, pinching Fiona's nose gently. My mood had never been better. I arrived at court early, standing at the door, taking a deep breath as if I were about to step into a new world. Hannah showed up half an hour early, as always, punctual to the point of being tedious. She wore a light gray business suit, as dull in color as she was in spirit. No greeting, no eye contact, just a slight nod before she walked past me. Inside the courtroom, I felt a mix of tension and excitement. The gavel struck, and it was all over. The divorce papers were stamped, and I exhaled as if releasing a boulder I had carried for years. Hannah stood up, gave me one last look. Your things? Make sure to move them out soon, I said, and she hurried out. No word about when she would collect her belongings. I took a taxi home. The house was mine, and the car was left to Hannah. Friends said I got the better end of the deal, but I didn't see it that way. During the divorce negotiations, I told Hannah she could make any requests, as long as they were within my means. But she only glanced at the agreement, signed, and walked out. No argument, no demands. That silence unsettled me. Entering the house, the cold air from the air conditioner made me shiver. The window was ajar, the plants on the balcony drooping, wilted as if abandoned by warmth. I looked around. The house was still full of furniture, yet something felt missing, a vague emptiness. I checked the safe in my study. My small collection was intact. The necklaces I had given Hannah after our wedding were still there. But the bookshelf was different. A few of her favorite law books were gone. I grabbed a cardboard box, gathered the rest of her books she liked into it. Then I went to the bedroom. Hannah's wardrobe was missing a few outfits. The rest I folded neatly and packed into the box. Finished, I called Hannah to let her know. As always, the mechanical female voice said she was unreachable. I didn't wait. I contacted an express delivery service and had the box sent straight to her office. That night, I sat on the sofa, staring out the window. Fiona's suit was still on me, like a reminder of the future waiting ahead. Hannah was now the past, a closed chapter without noise. Yet inside me, there was a strange blend of relief and hollowness, not out of regret, but because I realized that even after parting ways, I still had never truly understood who Hannah was. When I picked Fiona up to go test drive the car at the dealership, the golden afternoon sunlight poured through the windshield, making her hair shimmer as if it were gilded. She sat beside me, her hand lightly resting on my thigh, smiling radiantly. While I was driving, the phone rang loudly, a delivery man calling. "Hello, sir. The recipient over there refused to take the package," he said, his voice hesitant, a little awkward, as if caught between two sides. "Do you want me to bring it back? Or how should I handle it?" I was just about to answer when Fiona snatched the phone from my hand, her movement quick as lightning, her eyes flashing with irritation. "If she won't take it, then throw it away," she said into the receiver, her voice sharp, lips pressed tight. "She didn't move it herself, so what's the point anymore?" She hung up and tossed the phone back to me, pouting, her arms crossed. Fiona was upset, and I could sense a flicker of jealousy in her eyes. I mumbled nothing further, only smiled to soothe her, and when buying the car, I indulged her every request: premium leather trim, top-notch sound system, gleaming alloy wheels. Fiona liked the car, and so did I. "When we pick it up, we'll drive ourselves somewhere to celebrate," she said, her eyes lighting up, patting the steering wheel as if already imagining it. I nodded in agreement, excitement spreading inside me. I had wanted this SUV for a long time, picturing it rolling down the highway, the wind roaring past the windows. The first time I brought up wanting to change cars, Hannah dismissed it outright, without asking, her voice flat. "Waste of gas, and not practical. If you have to buy something, buy an electric car." In Hannah's eyes, practicality was everything. Every choice had to be calculated, like a case file. But Fiona wasn't like that. She supported all my decisions, even shared my interests and passions. Fiona was a woman of action. That very evening, when we got home, she was already planning our road trip, sitting in front of the computer, her fingers flying over the keyboard, mapping out a detailed route with seaside hotels and romantic restaurants. When I stepped out of the shower, water still dripping from my hair, Fiona closed the laptop and turned back with a radiant smile. "Honey," she called, her voice sweet as honey itself, making my heart skip a beat. Fiona had never called me that before. Even at our most intimate moments, she refused. Fiona's lips curved. "Only after you and Hannah divorced would you and I really be a couple, just like now. This weekend, my parents asked us to come over for dinner," she continued, her eyes sparkling with expectation. I held Fiona tightly in my arms, breathing in the soft scent of perfume from her hair, feeling both thrilled and overwhelmingly happy. No exaggeration. If she wanted stars from the sky, I would find a way to fetch them for her, even if I had to climb ladders to the clouds. Fiona and I had met during a camping trip on a sunny weekend a few months back. Friends invited both Hannah and me to join an outdoor event, pitching tents by the lake, grilling meat, telling stories around the campfire. Hannah always made me lose interest, shaking her head. "I have to work overtime on case files," her voice flat as if reading a verdict. Luckily, she didn't go, though she didn't stop me either. So that time, I met the lively, cheerful girl, Fiona. She appeared like a sudden downpour in a drought, hair flying in the wind, laughing out loud while chasing friends in a game. Maybe it was love at first sight. But Fiona's smile struck me instantly, her deep dimples and crescent-shaped laughing eyes making it impossible to look away. Wherever she went, the place lit up with life, laughing, telling stories, even dancing around the campfire under the stars. After that night, her image replayed in my mind like a slow motion film. We exchanged contacts, sometimes texting briefly. At first, just polite greetings. I never thought I would develop feelings for Fiona, but gradually I was drawn unconsciously to her freshness and vitality. Her world was bursting with colors, so different from Hannah. Those silent dinners, where the only sound was the spoon against the bowl, like a stone thrown into a calm lake, stirring waves in my heart. Every weekend afterward, I went out with Fiona, hiking, movies, or just driving aimlessly. Hannah never asked, only reminded me to drive safe, her eyes still glued to the computer screen. She, like her work as a judge, was dull and rigid, everything by strict rules. Meanwhile, Fiona always admired and praised. But she's a judge. That's amazing. She even lectured me seriously. A man who doesn't love his wife isn't a good man. The more I heard such words from Fiona, the less I could resist the growing fire of passion I felt for her, like a blaze I couldn't control. Until finally, she agreed to be with me. After a night of heavy rain, when we held each other under the porch, raindrops dripping from the roof, we began dating regularly, sinking into a fervent love affair, passionate kisses and sleepless nights. I whispered a promise in her ear. I'll cut ties with Hannah soon. And now, that promise has become reality. That weekend, Fiona took me to meet her parents, the first time I walked into that house as her official partner. I brought along an expensive Napa Valley wine, the faint scent of oak seeping from the cork, and a fruit basket carefully chosen by Fiona. Crisp red apples, plump purple grapes, fragrant golden pineapples. Compared to the time I sat at the table with Hannah, exchanging a few brief words before talking about marriage, this felt far more formal, like a ritual. Fiona linked her arm through mine, her fingers tightly interlaced, her voice gentle. Even though you've been divorced, I don't mind, but my parents still worry. Once they see how well you treat me, they'll be reassured. She tilted her head, her hair falling loosely across her forehead, trying to ease my tension. Fiona thought I was uneasy about buying gifts, but that wasn't it. I was only worried that I hadn't done enough, hadn't been good enough. Fiona's love was so complete that I feared I might not deserve it, that even the slightest shortfall would disappoint her. When the talk shifted to engagement gifts, Fiona's parents suggested it softly but firmly. In our family tradition, the gift is around $40,000. That figure was far higher than anything I had spent when marrying Hannah. I hesitated, my hand tightening around the glass of water on the table. But Fiona narrowed her eyes with a smile, whispering in my ear, "What you give me is mine, and what's mine is yours." That sentence was like warm water running through my chest, dissolving my worries. Back when I first got engaged to Hannah, I once asked her for money to repair our old house, just a temporary loan. She didn't refuse, but she made me sign a debt note, her voice cold. "This is a loan." I still remember her expression, handing me that paper, no emotion, as if she were sentencing me. Later, I bought a new house in the city instead, leaving the old one to rot. Thinking back, Hannah and I were probably never right for each other from the very beginning. But with Fiona, everything felt like a brand new start, vivid and full of hope. After our road trip together, the salty sea wind blowing through the car windows, we registered our marriage. No wedding ceremony, just a simple event, though we invited quite a few friends. I drank a lot, the red wine swirling in my glass, my laughter loud, my heart overflowing with joy. Finally, I had married the woman I loved. The miserable days with Hannah, the silent evenings, the dry conversations were gone like a nightmare that would never return. I felt alive again, every breath fresh, brimming with vitality. I took a few more days off work, wanting to stay glued to Fiona at all times. She was both sweet and sincere, sometimes playfully tilting her head, her eyes shimmering. Honey, buy me this, please. I couldn't say no. Buying her designer handbags, sparkling high heels, expensive dresses piling up like a mountain in the bedroom. Honey, you're the best, she'd say, clinging to my arm, her voice sweet like a song. I love you to death. Her smile, those deep dimples, made me dizzy, my heart pounding like the first days of love. Not like Hannah. Every time I gave her a luxury gift, she would frown, her voice cold, too flashy, not practical. The more I compared, the clearer it became that Hannah and I had been a mistake. We had met through introductions, my parents approving of her education and career, college graduate, working in court, a young judge with a promising future. But precisely because of that, when I divorced, both Fiona and I worried. Hannah was a judge. If she had chosen to fight, the divorce would not have been smooth, and I would not have come out ahead, especially that day in the parking lot when Hannah saw me and Fiona hand in hand, laughing together. I thought she would explode, make a scene, but she didn't. She just stood there, her eyes cold as ice, then turned away without a word. Thankfully, Hannah's attitude in the divorce was firm. She refused most of our shared assets, signed the papers quickly, as if she wanted to sever everything as soon as possible. Because of that, we avoided messy negotiations, and I ended up with the life I had always wanted. But then, after the wedding, I gradually realized Fiona was no longer the same girl I once knew. But Fiona is still young, Mike, my friend, said as he poured red wine into my glass, smirking with a teasing tone. Creasy, when they're young and beautiful, you've got to build that with money. Otherwise, what do you think a girl fresh out of college could possibly want from you? We were sitting in a small bar, dim yellow lights casting a glow on the sparkling bottles. Behind the counter, cigarette smoke curling lazily in the air. A few days earlier, Fiona and I had our first fight since being together. It wasn't anything too serious, but the uneasy feeling stuck with me, like a small thorn pressed into the palm. I know, I muttered, swirling the wine glass, the red liquid shimmering under the light. I'm not saying she's greedy or wasteful. It's just that when I saw the massive credit card bill, I couldn't contain my anger. Fiona loved luxury goods, head to toe, inside and out. She only wore designer brands. I had known that before we married, but I hadn't expected that within just a month, she would buy several limited edition handbags, some still sealed in dust bags, piled in the corner of the room. The shoe rack and dressing room were packed, high heels stacked on top of each other, glossy silk dresses hanging so close together it looked like a boutique. Forget it, I sighed, downing the wine, the bitterness sliding down my throat. I don't even know what to say anymore. Mike laughed loudly, patting my shoulder. Back then, your ex-wife didn't want gifts, and you still insisted. Now she's the one buying, and you're upset. That sentence pierced me like a small blade. Hannah's image flashed in my mind. Those times I bought her expensive handbags. She frowned, her voice soft but firm. I told you not to buy me any more bags. Save the money. Use it to take our parents on a trip during the holidays. I suddenly remembered those trips were mostly paid for with Hannah's salary card. She always quietly pulled out her card to settle the bill, never complaining. My phone buzzed, Fiona's name lighting up the screen. I hesitated, letting it ring 3 times before answering. Her choked voice spilling through the speaker. Honey, the lights went out. It's so dark. I'm scared. My chest tightened, and in an instant, all my frustration dissolved. I stood up quickly, while Mike's laughter rang behind me. Didn't even last an hour after the fight. It was true. As soon as I opened the door to the house, Fiona rushed into my arms, her petite body trembling in a thin silk nightgown, the dim glow from the living room lamp casting shadows across her face, her eyes red and glistening with tears. She looked pitiful, like a lost kitten. I wrapped my arms tightly around her, deliberately ignoring the mess of high heels scattered at the doorway, the trace of her earlier tantrum. I was out walking with some friends that day, Fiona said softly, clutching my shirt. They kept bragging about how great their boyfriends were, so I bought those things. I already contacted the seller to see if I can return them. Honey, don't be mad anymore, okay? Every word from her shattered my anger, like a hammer breaking glass. Watching the tears roll down her cheeks, I suddenly felt cruel. Wasn't the money I earned meant for the woman I loved to enjoy? Fiona wasn't Hannah. That night, we clung to each other from the front door to the living room, from the bedroom to the bathroom, as if trying to erase every gap between us. It was the same house, but with Fiona as its mistress. Even a quarrel turned into fuel for passion, burning like a fire that would never go out. I never expected my parents to come. I had never told them about my divorce from Hannah, so they didn't know I had married Fiona. Fiona's parents had asked many times when the two families would meet. I had been waiting for the right occasion to bring Fiona home, wanting everything to be perfect. But when the phone rang and my father's deep voice came through the receiver, I panicked, my heart pounding like it might burst. I rushed to take leave from work, hurried home, sweat soaking through my shirt. As the elevator doors opened, I heard Fiona's sobs pouring out like a heavy rain. When I stepped into the apartment, my heart stopped for a beat. Fiona was crouched on the floor, her hair disheveled, her thin silk dress clinging to her body, tears streaming down her cheeks, smudging her mascara. My parents sat on the sofa, their eyes sharp as blades, my father's hand gripping the armrest tightly, my mother's lips pressed thin, her face flushed red with anger. I ran to help Fiona up, her trembling hands clinging to me. As soon as she steadied herself, my mother lunged forward and slapped me so hard, my face whipped to the side, burning hot, the sound sharp in my ears. Fiona screamed, crying even harder, her small hands clutching me, as if afraid I might disappear. I knew clearly Fiona had done nothing wrong. The one at fault was me. I had cheated. I had hidden Fiona, hidden this new marriage from my parents, from the world. Go to the bedroom first, okay? I whispered, soothing her, gently pushing her toward the bedroom, her hand still clutching my shirt, her eyes red and panicked. As the door closed, the crash of breaking dishes rang from the living room like a small storm. The barrage of questions made me sick, and the anger inside me flared up like fire. Hannah! 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 I shouted, my voice cracking, my fists clenched tight. We've been divorced for 2 months. Divorced already. The awful feelings I thought I had buried long ago, weariness, pressure, the suffocating sense of being trapped, had been silently piling up, now exploding like a bomb. Hannah was probably what people called a good wife. She worked carefully, meticulously, never lost her temper, even the time she saw me and Fiona kissing in the parking lot, her eyes full of disbelief. She still didn't lash out. I still remember that night when I went upstairs. Hannah had prepared dinner, as usual, waiting on the sofa, her hands folded tightly in her lap, the kitchen light shining on her calm face. In that moment, I wanted to ask her one thing, wanted to ask if she had truly never loved me from the start. No woman could endure seeing her husband with another, yet Hannah didn't say a word, only silently watched me wash my hands, spoon rice into my bowl, as if nothing had happened. That night, Fiona had said to me, her voice firm, she already knows. If you don't bring up divorce today, then we're done. I couldn't bear the thought of losing Fiona, couldn't stand her eyes when she said the words, we're done. So I came clean with Hannah, my heart pounding in my chest. That dinner was the most nerve-wracking meal of my life. Can we get a divorce? I asked, my voice trembling, my eyes fixed on the rice bowl. Hannah froze, her chopsticks shaking slightly in her hand, then nodded, her tone steady. All right. She didn't ask me about Fiona, didn't ask when I had met her. She only said, when the divorce agreement is ready, tell me. Tonight, you sleep in the small room. Then she stood up, glanced at the dishes on the table, and reminded me, don't forget to wash the dishes. Before we married, we had agreed. She cooked. I washed. Later, I found it troublesome and installed a dishwasher. So all she had to do was load it. It seemed Hannah never lost her temper, not even about the divorce. She quietly walked into the bedroom, closed the door, leaving me alone in the kitchen, the yellow light shining on the untouched dishes, like a reminder of what I had just broken. Only after my parents left did I finally breathe a sigh of relief, as if a heavy stone pressing down inside me had just been lifted. The sound of the door closing echoed dryly, leaving silence hanging in the house. I pushed open the bedroom door, and Fiona threw herself into my arms like a frightened fawn, her hair tangled, tears not yet dry glistening on her cheeks. I'm sorry, she choked out, her voice trembling, her hands clutching tightly at my shirt. I pinched her cheek lightly, feeling her soft, damp skin, and reassured her, it's my fault. I let you suffer. She looked up, her eyes shining, her lips quivering, and I couldn't resist pulling her into a tight embrace, as if trying to wipe away all her fear. To cheer her up, I took Fiona to a fancy restaurant she had once mentioned, where crystal chandeliers glittered above. White silk cloths covered the glossy ebony tables. A meal costing thousands of dollars. Dishes arranged like works of art. Golden seared ribeye steak, bright red lobster, laid atop creamy sauce. Fiona looked like a child, her eyes lighting up as I cut pieces of meat to feed her. I put on gloves and carefully peeled the lobster for her. She chewed, then asked playfully, with a hint of curiosity, Chris, have you ever peeled shrimp for anyone else? I froze, my hands still, then shook my head with a faint smile. Never. Honestly, never. Before Hannah, I had never loved anyone. As a student, I only studied, and after graduation, I threw myself into work. When I was introduced to Hannah, I awkwardly copied tips I found online about dating, buying gifts, trying to do everything to win her favor. But Hannah always smiled, gently refusing. Just share a meal, watch a movie, that's enough. Don't spend too much. Or, it's okay, I can handle it myself. You work hard enough already. You don't need to fuss over me. Back then, I thought Hannah was truly good. On the weekend, I brought Fiona back to my parents' place. After the tense visit the other day, I secretly tried calling Hannah, wanting to ask if she had told my parents about the divorce. But like always, I grew so frustrated I laughed bitterly, my hand gripping the phone tight. Since the divorce, I had barely been able to reach Hannah, as if she had vanished from the world. At my parents' house, Fiona stood at the doorway, neatly dressed, but her eyes full of worry. She bowed her head, her hands twisting together. I held her hand, my warm palm wrapping around her cold fingers, whispering, "It's okay." That lunch was fairly calm, though still a little strained. My parents asked about Fiona's family, then about her work. "I don't have a job," Fiona answered truthfully, her voice soft, her eyes lowered to her rice bowl. My father frowned, his voice stern. "How can you not work? Didn't you graduate from college? How can you graduate and not find a job?" Fiona's face went pale, her lips pressed tight. I quickly cut in, my tone firm. "Enough. She doesn't work, but she's not living off anyone. I'm not incapable of earning money." I glanced at Fiona, saw her exhale slightly, her eyes grateful. Before, I didn't rely on Hannah's meager salary to support the family either, I added, speaking with confidence, though unease flickered inside. Fiona had once worked in creative design at an advertising agency, but the pay was low, and now freelance work was tough, the competition harsh. I had seen her struggle and felt for her, so I told her to quit, promising I would provide for her. My parents fell silent at that, then shifted to another topic. "And about Uncle Bob, it seems Hannah won't be able to help," my mother said, her voice tinged with regret. "That's how I learned Uncle Bob was caught in a lawsuit." "Have you tried contacting Hannah?" I asked, setting down my chopsticks. My father nodded, then shook his head again, leaving me puzzled. "Her number can't be reached, and we couldn't find her at work. Her colleague said she took leave." I frowned, my fingers tightening around my glass of water. Hannah, taking leave? Someone who lived and breathed work like her? It seemed she wasn't the one who had spoken to my parents about the divorce. They must have assumed she was home, gone to see her, and instead unexpectedly found Fiona. I didn't ask further. I just wanted to sever all thoughts of Hannah. That afternoon, I promised Fiona I would take her skiing, hoping she'd forget the tension. Before we left, I gave my parents the number of a lawyer. "Have Uncle contact him. He's well known in the field. High chance of winning. Don't bother with Hannah anymore," I said firmly. I wanted nothing to do with Hannah. Didn't want my family entangled with her again. But fate mocked me. As soon as we arrived at the ski resort, the icy wind cutting through my coat, I caught sight of a familiar figure gliding swiftly across the slope, as fast as the wind itself, leaving two sharp trails in the snow, vanishing into the mist. Hannah. I froze, my eyes locked on her, even if just for a moment. She wore a dark blue ski suit, her hair tied high, flying in the air, her movements decisive, powerful, nothing like the woman I once knew. I remembered clearly she once said she didn't know how to ski. Fiona pursed her lips, her eyes sharp as she looked at me. "That was your ex-wife just now, wasn't it?" Her voice carried a trace of jealousy, her gloved hand clenched. I faltered, my eyes scanning the slopes. But that figure had disappeared, as if she had never been there. "Probably not," I said, shaking my head, my voice uncertain, but inside me a question echoed. Was that really Hannah? I never thought I would still remember Hannah in the days that followed. But the longer I was with Fiona, the more often her image crept back into my mind, like a faint shadow that refused to fade. One weekend, I lay stretched out on the sofa, weak sunlight filtering through the curtains, the room filled with the smell of leftover takeout from the day before. I was sick of eating out, the greasy taste clinging in my mouth. "Honey, let's cook something ourselves today," I suggested softly, running my hand through Fiona's hair. "The doctor said I have fatty liver, so I should cut back on takeout." She rested her head on my lap, not moving, her eyes glued to her phone. Since we got married 3 or 4 months ago, the kitchen had gathered a thick layer of dust, pots and pans tucked neatly away in the cupboards, untouched. The fridge was empty, except for a few cans of cold soda and a half-melted tub of ice cream. I don't know how to cook, Fiona replied flatly, not looking up. Let's just order New Mexico chili and some spicy wings from Wingstop, okay? She seemed not to hear the words fatty liver I had just said, her eyes still fixed on the screen, fingers scrolling quickly through photos of glittering dresses. Hannah was different. She always paid attention to nutrition, cooking 3 meals a day, whenever possible. I remembered the evenings she spent in the kitchen. She had even used her spare time to earn a nutrition certificate, carefully jotting down weekly meal plans in a small notebook she kept next to the fridge. I didn't argue with Fiona, just quietly nudged her aside, got up, and walked into the study. I don't like spicy food, neither did Hannah, but Fiona loved it, so much that nearly every meal had to have a burning kick of chili. Friends told me, you win some, you lose some, you can't have it all. True, I told myself. At least Fiona and I matched in many other ways. A few meals on weekends, I could tolerate. But when the chili made me cough nonstop, Fiona pushed me away, scolding, don't cough over the food. She slurped down her bubble tea noisily, not even glancing at me, let alone offering me a glass of water. I began to dread coming home. A place that was once supposed to be a haven, now nothing more than an apartment filled with luxury goods and trash. Luckily, work had entered a critical stage, giving me an excuse to stay late at the office, avoiding the suffocating moments at home. At first, Fiona still called, her voice sweet. What time will you be home? I thought when I opened the door, she would run into my arms like before, or at least prepare me a late meal. But no, the only sight was her sprawled on the sofa, the glow of the TV screen on her face, surrounded by empty snack bags and soda cans. When I complained, she looked up, frowning. Don't bring negative emotions from work back here. Just because you're upset doesn't mean I have to be too. Those words cut like a knife, severing the last strand of hope in me. I hid in the bathroom, opened the window, and turned on the fan, lit a cigarette, white smoke curling in the cold air. Hannah's image suddenly surfaced, painfully clear. After our wedding, my company went through a major leadership change. Everyone on edge, fearing layoffs. I was nervous, tense, often sitting in the car in the basement, just to calm down before going upstairs. Somehow, Hannah always knew. She would tap on the car window, her face calm, her voice gentle. Rough day. Dinner's ready. Let's eat and talk. She was a great listener, always helping me sort out problems, even if they weren't her field. She spoke briefly, but with strength. Home is a refuge for two people, not just one. I realized she had almost never complained to me, even though her work as a judge must have been heavy. For her, was that house truly a refuge? Emotions really shape a person. One day, working overtime, I suddenly spiked a fever, my head spinning, my body burning up. Coworkers brought me home, rang the bell several times, but no one answered. I forced a smile, sent them off, and fumbled with the lock. The apartment appeared in chaos. Fiona's high heels, scattered at the entrance, the dining table full of untouched takeout boxes, the sofa piled with dirty clothes, the carpet littered with chip crumbs and wrappers. My life, I didn't know when, had sunk this low. I called Fiona. The phone rang many times before someone picked up. On the other end was loud bar music, her voice shouting above the noise. I'm out partying. Wait till I get back. Before I could say anything, the call cut off, leaving me with a bitter smile. My parents' words from their first meeting with Fiona echoed in my head. Look at your home now. Does it even look like a home anymore? Back then, I had snapped back. Why not? I love Fiona. Wherever she is, that's home, even if it's a dump. But now, when I kicked a trash bag by my feet, I opened the drawer under the TV stand and saw boxes of medicine neatly labeled in Hannah's handwriting, clear and careful. Only when she was in court would Hannah miss my calls, but she always rang back immediately. After work, she was usually home, cooking, reading. When I was sick, she would drop everything to take care of me, even if she never spoke many sweet words. She was quiet, but always understanding. Maybe it was the fever making me delirious. But I dialed Hannah's number, my hand trembling. The phone rang. I regained control and quickly hung up, my heart hammering like it would burst out of my chest. Thank God she didn't answer. If she had, I wouldn't know what to say, whether to explain I was burning up with fever, or that I had called in delirium, or that I just wanted to hear her voice to ease the emptiness inside me. After taking medicine, I drifted into sleep, sweat soaking my forehead, my head spinning. The sudden ring of the phone yanked me out of the haze. It was Fiona. But when I picked up, a strange man's urgent voice came through. I'm Fiona's friend. She's drunk. Can you come get her? My head buzzed, the fever making every sound echo from far away. It took me a moment to realize Fiona was drunk at a bar and hadn't even called a driver. Angry and worried, I threw on a coat, my legs shaky as I stumbled out to catch a taxi to the bar. The night was freezing, neon lights flickering across the wet pavement. When I arrived, Fiona was leaning against a strange car, a cigarette glowing between her fingers, white smoke curling in the air. She wore a low-cut silk dress clinging to her body, glittering stilettos flashing under the streetlights. Her look more provocative than alluring. I held back my anger, stepped up as traffic police approached, and her drunken voice slurred beside me. Honey, I only had a few sips. Explain to them for me. No need to take my license. Her words only fueled the fire inside me. Where was the straightforward, radiant girl I once knew? The officer was firm, his voice cold. Your alcohol level exceeds the legal limit. Your license will be suspended for 6 months, a $2,000 fine, and you must attend a mandatory DUI class. I lowered my head, speaking softly. All right, follow the procedure. On the taxi ride home, Fiona turned to the window, silent, not a single apology. How was I supposed to know there'd be a checkpoint? She muttered sulkily. It's not my fault. Why are you so mad? She didn't even look at me, didn't care about my fever or exhaustion. I began to doubt. Were Fiona and I ever truly compatible? After that day, silence fell between us. Fiona slept all day, spent nights at bars, the sound of her heels on the floor each time she left stabbing into me like a hammer. I drowned myself in work, but the strain made me sloppy, numbers on the screen blurring like my life unraveling. I thought, when you chose to divorce Hannah, you had thought it through. Mike, my friend, said at a late-night BBQ joint, the smell of grilled meat mingling with cigarette smoke. He snatched the glass of wine from my hand, his eyes serious. Maybe it's not Fiona who changed. Maybe it's your expectations. A girlfriend and a wife. Those are different. He was about to say more, then stopped, his eyes flicking past my shoulder. I turned, and my heart froze. Hannah was there, sitting in the corner, smiling gently at a man in a suit across from her. She wore a beige sweater, her hair loose and natural, nothing like the rigid woman I once knew. They seemed out of place in the noisy restaurant, like two figures stepping out of a still painting. Who's that man with Hannah? Mike asked curiously. I shook my head. a spark of anger flaring inside me. The phone on the table lit up. 11:17 p.m. Back then, Hannah would have been asleep by now. What was she doing here with another man? Let it go. You're divorced, Mike said, patting my shoulder. Another drink? Or let's head out. His wife had already called 6 or 7 times, urging him home. Fiona hadn't called me once, hadn't cared where I was. You go ahead. I'll stay a bit longer, I said, my eyes locked on Hannah, unable to pull away. The man with her looked wealthy, his suit perfectly tailored, a watch gleaming on his wrist. Mike sighed, warning me as he left. Just look. Don't stir trouble. I bristled. Hannah and I had been married 6, 7 years. Was I not even allowed to greet her? Thinking that, I stood up, walked to her table, my heart thudding hard. Hannah looked up, surprise flashing briefly, before her expression settled into calm, as if seeing an old acquaintance. Hannah, it's been a while, I said, trying to sound casual, my hand clenched in my pocket. How have you been? She nodded, her smile polite but distant. The man across from her glanced at me, then back at her, asking, Miss Snow? A friend of yours? Miss Snow. Those words extinguished the flame inside me, that cold form of address, as if I were nothing but a recent acquaintance. But what kind of acquaintance made Hannah break her routine? Dining out late at night like this? Were they dating? The thought reignited the fire in me. What's it to you? I snapped, my voice sharper than I intended. Hannah, are you free? I want to talk to you alone for a moment. She stood up, and for a second, I felt relief, thinking she wouldn't refuse. But Hannah didn't even look at me. She turned to the man, her voice gentle. I'm done eating. How about you? Then she walked past me without a glance, as if I were a stranger. I paid the bill and rushed outside, the cold wind slapping my face, my heart pounding violently. Hannah had already gotten into the man's car, the red taillights fading into the night. I jumped into a taxi, my voice urgent. Follow that car ahead. The driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror, said nothing, and stepped on the gas. The car stopped in front of a bar, or rather, a live house, with soft lights glowing through the glass, the atmosphere warm, so different from the noisy bars I used to go to with Fiona. I hurried inside, breathless, my eyes scanning the room for Hannah. But instead of her, I saw Fiona. She was smiling seductively, her head resting on the shoulder of a slight young man, a sparkling cocktail in her hand utterly unconcerned that she was married. Rage surged through me like fire, and I stormed over shouting, Fiona, do you have any shame? Do you even remember you're married? My voice echoed above the music, drawing stares from all around. Fiona startled, her glass trembling in her hand, her eyes panicked. She quickly pulled away from the man, trying to leave, but I grabbed her wrist tightly, my fingers digging in until she froze. The fury of betrayal erased all reason, my eyes bloodshot. I give you money. I provide for you. And you, Fiona, we're getting divorced. The word divorce cut out sharp as a blade. I wasn't afraid. I had gone through it once already. A second time held no fear. Fiona was stunned, her eyes briefly frightened. Then she stopped resisting. The people at the table realized what was happening and quickly slipped away, leaving just the two of us in the gaze of the curious crowd. And what about you? Fiona suddenly snapped, her voice sharp. You said you were working late, so what are you doing here at a bar? I bet you came to see your ex-wife, didn't you? I froze, unable to reply, before cheers and applause erupted, drawing everyone's eyes to the stage. I looked up, and my heart stopped. Hannah. She had changed out of her jeans and black jacket into a glittering dress, her long hair in big curls, holding a guitar, sitting tall on a stool under the stage lights. "This will be my last song here," she said in her clear voice, "for all of you tonight." It wasn't the first time I had heard Hannah sing, but this time her voice was like a river, gentle at times, powerful at others, sweeping me away. She lowered her gaze slightly, her fingers gliding over the strings, nothing like the dull, rigid Hannah I once knew. She shone, radiant, like an entirely different person. "Looks like you didn't even know your ex-wife performs here," Fiona sneered, shattering the spell I was under. I frowned, shook her hand off, and stepped toward the stage, my eyes locked on Hannah. I wanted to rush up and demand to know, who was she really, the lifeless judge by day, or the confident singer by night? When the song ended, applause thundered, and Hannah bowed before stepping down. I moved to run to her, but Fiona grabbed me, her eyes sharp. "What are you planning to do?" I didn't want to argue, but she clung to me, her voice shrill. My mind held only one thought. This marriage, I would end for sure. Fiona refused the divorce. She packed a suitcase, slammed the door, and stormed out in anger. I didn't stop her, my heart consumed with Hannah's image, and regret spreading inside me like wildfire. I began searching for her, asking around. An old colleague of Hannah's only said, "She's been wanting to quit for a long time. I don't know why she's so determined this time, but I admire her for it." They looked surprised, asking, "She didn't tell you?" I forced a smile, standing outside the courthouse, the cold wind making me shiver. "Hannah, quitting?" I had no idea. Then I remembered one Friday night, as I hurriedly packed a bag to go to the hot springs with Fiona, Hannah leaned against the doorway and asked, "What do you think if I quit my job?" I brushed it off, not even thinking. Why quit? If you don't want to work at the court, what else could you do? She never brought it up again, and I never cared. Now, looking back, I was shameful, blind to so much about her. She might have said more, but I never asked, and she never told. I searched the cafes, the libraries she often went to. At last, I saw Hannah in a small library, golden light spilling over the wooden table, a stack of thick books before her. She was deeply engrossed, pen gliding across paper, taking notes, unaware of me standing there. "Hannah," I called, her name spilling out, bitter on my tongue. She looked up, a flicker of annoyance in her eyes. The first time I had ever seen her not mask her feelings. She glanced at me, then back down to her book, as if I didn't exist. "Hannah, I was wrong," I said, my voice hoarse, pulling out a chair to sit across from her. "I always thought I didn't love you, but it turns out I never understood my own heart. I loved her quiet companionship, her selfless sacrifices, her gentle understanding. I had been blinded by Fiona, by the thrill of novelty. I knew I was wrong, but I believed Hannah would forgive me. Her nature was always gentle. She didn't push me away when I sat down, and joy surged inside me. I was ready to go on, but she stood, swiftly gathering her books, her tablet, packing them neatly into her bag. Before leaving, she looked at me, her voice cold. "Wrong or not, I don't care, and you shouldn't either. You should realize by now, I don't want to see you again. You're a burden." So, Hannah did know how to get angry. Watching her frown, a flash of irritation in her eyes, I suddenly found her strangely endearing, like a part of her I had never seen before. I chased her outside, the cold wind carrying with it the faint smell of old books from the library. Just then, a few children laughing and chasing a bright red balloon ran past Hannah. She seemed to notice too, her steps faltering, but I reached out, lightly pulling her back toward me. The moment our hands touched, a chill ran down my spine. mixed with an indescribable sweetness, like a gentle current of electricity. That instant pulled me back to the day I first met Hannah, the last arranged meeting I agreed to for my parents' sake. It had poured with rain that day. Careful as always, Hannah had checked the forecast and brought a navy blue umbrella. "Let's go together," she said softly, offering it to me. I held it high, shielding us both, raindrops drumming steadily on the fabric. Cars splashed water as they passed, and I quickly pulled Hannah back, afraid of staining her white dress. That was the first time we touched, and it felt electric, my heart pounding hard. Today was the same, but Hannah quickly pulled her hand away, snapping me back to reality. She frowned, her voice cold. "Chris Harrington, can you stop bothering me already?" Her words cut like a knife, slicing deep inside me. I regretted being blinded by Fiona, yet I couldn't help but wonder if Hannah had always hidden her true self from me. Hannah rejected me. Is it because of that man from the other night? But I still believed I had a chance, because she said that man was the owner of the bar, and she had only been singing there for a month or two at most. 1 or 2 months couldn't compare to our 6 or 7 years together. I didn't press further. Afraid of troubling Hannah, I only told her to take good care of herself, to call me anytime if she needed anything. Hannah didn't react much, didn't say anything else. She hailed a taxi. Just before the door closed, I called out, "What about the car I gave you?" She answered, her voice light as air. "Sold it." "Sold it? Really?" That car had been the first gift I gave her after we married. I stood there frozen, watching the taxi disappear, my chest hollow with disappointment. Even though I had been the one to drive it most of the time, it was a gift chosen for her, every detail thought out with her in mind. I dragged myself home, each step heavy. As I opened the door, I saw Fiona sitting on the sofa, her face dark, arms crossed tight. On the coffee table lay a stack of photos, candid shots of me and Hannah, the last one capturing the moment I pulled her aside from the children. Fiona exploded, screaming, "You're still chasing after her? You want to get back with her, don't you?" She didn't ask, she declared. "You want a divorce? Fine, but you'll leave me everything." I was stunned, staring at Fiona, the girl who once shone like the sun, now unrecognizable, crazed. So it was true. Fiona loved my money, not me. The truth cut sharp, shredding the last illusions I had. But she didn't stop there, storming into my company, screaming at my colleagues, nearly sinking the project at a crucial moment. The company put me on extended leave, officially to relax and handle family matters. The next day, the project lead was replaced. I had never imagined my life could fall into such a pit. 3 days passed. I lay lifeless at home, the TV flickering, the air thick with smoke and leftover food. I called Hannah, my hand trembling, but it was always the same. She had blocked my number. As I was about to leave, I ran right into Fiona at the door. She stood there, arms crossed, her eyes sharp as blades. "Whatever it is, we'll talk later. I have to go somewhere," I said curtly, slamming the door shut and leaving her in the hallway. Through the crack, her voice came cold. "You froze the credit cards, didn't you?" I smirked, anger mixed with disgust, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "And what if I did? Fiona, either we divorce, or it stays like this. But you won't get another dime from me." I didn't want to argue, turned and rushed down the stairs, the clatter of her high heels echoing behind me, as if she tried to follow, but couldn't. I drove to my parents' house, the familiar road sliding past the window, the trees fading into the twilight. In my mind, Hannah's image wouldn't leave, along with the burning question, why was she always silent with me? but after the divorce shone like an entirely different person. Sitting in my parents' living room, the faint scent of tea drifting through, I went straight to the point. So you used the scholarship for her, college as leverage, to force her to be with me? Did you ever ask if she wanted it? My father sipped his tea, his gaze distant. My mother sighed, setting down a plate of cookies, her voice slow. She never said she disagreed either. I froze. They explained they had once supported a young woman through a family scholarship, an orphan living with her grandmother, who passed away when she entered college. That support was in fact a 4-year tuition loan, while she covered her own living expenses by working part-time. After graduation, she repaid it in full, with interest. I had admired such diligence, but never realized that girl was Hannah. Don't dwell on it, my father said calmly. Just say whether you want Hannah back or not. Oh, and she sent us $30,000 last month. I staggered back as if struck. 30,000. Hannah had repaid her debt, severed every tie. Her quiet endurance through 6, 7 years of marriage. Her calmness before me. It had all been a mask hiding the pressure from my parents. They had used the scholarship as invisible chains to bind her into the marriage. And I had never valued it. Hannah was a bird trapped in a cage. I realized she had never truly lived as herself. But now, she had broken free, soaring in the sky, radiant. And me? Standing here with nothing but regret and the harsh truth. Hannah and I had no chance, maybe never again. I began to resemble Fiona, spending nights lost in bars, neon lights flickering across glasses of liquor, smoke blending with the reek of alcohol. But unlike her, I drank to dull the pain, to forget the shattered pieces of a life I once thought was bright. Fiona, on the other hand, leaned on the shoulders of strangers, plump, unattractive men with fat wallets, their eyes glinting with greed. I saw her in the corner, smiling coyly, stroking the collar of a middle-aged man, as if our marriage certificate was nothing but a joke. Fiona, in truth, was just a gold digger, and I the fool who believed in her love. Then why haven't you divorced yet? Mike, my friend, frowned, pushing a beer across the table, his tone heavy. I shook my head with a bitter smile. She wants everything I own. How could I let her win? Mike fell silent, then urged, You can't go on like this. If you do, losing your job is only a matter of time. He was right. Fiona had stormed into my office more than once, screaming at colleagues, until the HR director called me in, voice cold. Process your resignation, Chris. I just laughed, a bitter laugh, as if the whole world had collapsed beneath my feet. Mike introduced me to a divorce lawyer, said he could help. I nodded thanks, but inside I felt drained, like a tree dried up, its roots rotting in cold soil. The day I went to court to file for divorce from Fiona, I saw Hannah. She walked in, carrying a gift box, her eyes gentle as she said goodbye to her old colleagues. I overheard. She had passed her exams, chosen to pursue further studies, maybe a PhD at an Ivy League school. Maybe this had always been the path she wanted. She walked out, her dress flowing, hair lifted by the breeze, sunlight lighting her radiant face. She walked past as I stood waiting at the courthouse door. She saw me, but as if she didn't, her steps never faltered. I ran after her. Hannah! Hannah! Wait for me. She stopped. I wanted to apologize, to speak on my parents' behalf, to say I finally understood her silent sacrifices. But she only smiled, a smile light as a cloud, her voice calm. I wish you luck with your divorce. Without a word of blame, without a trace of resentment, she walked away, leaving me with nothing but cold emptiness between the marble walls of the courthouse. Divorcing Fiona was not easy. We fought every day over assets, neither of us willing to give in. The meetings with lawyers, dragging on endlessly. I sat in the conference room, cold fluorescent lights overhead, listening to Fiona scream for the house, the money, everything. Sometimes I wondered if Hannah hadn't agreed to the divorce so easily, if she had clung to me the way Fiona did, would things be different? But there are no ifs. Life has no rewind button, only choices and consequences. One afternoon, after a grueling session in court, I left and sat on a wooden bench in the park, watching golden leaves fall silently along the path. No more drunken nights, no more shouting matches. I pulled out my phone, deleted Fiona's number, each digit vanishing like erasing a part of my past. I didn't call Hannah, didn't look for her anymore. She had flown to her own sky, and I, at last, had learned how to let go.